Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at Aerocool's excellent little case. This is the Atomic. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we're taking a look at the Aerocool Atomic. Now this, before you ask, is the V1 version. There is actually a couple of different versions of this case. There is the light version, there is also the V2, and both the V1 and the V2 and the light, from what I can tell, actually come in two colour options. So they've got the black colour option, which is what we've got here today, which is finished in this lovely satin matte black finish. And also there is a white finish version as well, should you wish to go down that route. All links for these will be in the video description below, and I should say, first of all, thank you very much to uglybob for sending us this one for review purposes. We do appreciate it a great deal. And actually, I'll be honest with you, this is one of those cases which was kind of on my periphery a little bit. I was considering it at one point, and there was a few things I looked at and I thought, well, I'm not entirely sure. But actually, now that we've actually got it in front of us and I've had a little bit of a look through, a bit of a teardown, I've got to say, for the price of this case, around about £45 here in the UK from places like scan.co.uk and also from Amazon. Again, links will be in the video description. I think this offers a really compelling choice for a micro ATX build for around about that price point. And in fact, if you're looking at other similar cases built on a kind of similar structure, such as things like the Co-Link Citadel, the Citadel Mesh, and cases based on that same chassis, then this is actually a really good option if the others are slightly more expensive or just simply not available, as things are these days. So what do we get for the money? So first of all, you can probably see already, it's no big surprise, there is a 200mm fan installed in the front here. Also in the rear, there is a 120mm, both of which are addressable RGB, and both feature a pass-through function, so you can actually connect it to a motherboard should you have one of those 5V addressable RGB connections on it. But don't worry if you don't, this is a completely standalone system also. All you need to do to change through the color cycles is press the RGB button, which is conveniently on the top, and you can cycle through the various options, such as obviously unicorn puke, static colors, all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be extremely flexible if you're building a relatively high-end system with a really nice board with addressable RGB features, no problems. If you're building just a flip system and you've got a relatively cheap board which doesn't have any RGB functionality, this is still going to look absolutely great. So we'll go through today, we'll have a bit of a teardown, go through the features, etc. I will be doing a full build in this coming up, so if you want to see how that goes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the chime icon, and you'll be notified of future video releases. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm actually really excited to do a build in this. It does tick so many boxes for me, it really does. So anyway, that's enough waffle, let's get on and have a look and see what we actually get for the money. So as you can see, this is a micro ATX form factor. You can also put in here an ITX board should you wish to, although I think that's going to look a little bit lost in there because of the size we've got inside. There is a cavernous interior. You've also got a tempered glass side panel with also magnetic catch and a nice little pull handle on the side there. The side window actually swivels all the way around, so nice and easy access to your components should you need to do any quick modifications or just for dusting and cleaning purposes. No problems there at all. We've got this really nice mesh filter on the front. So this is essentially a two-part device. Not only does this allow airflow to go through, also this is a means of keeping things clean. So the mesh is relatively tight on there, so you can actually forego having an internal filter and just go with this, which I guess is one of those things which little things like that help to keep the prices down because we don't need to create or manufacture an additional internal filter. I'll put the sizes of the actual case on the screen right now so you can see what it is, length, width, height, etc. Some of the other things which you may want to know, the CPU, you can actually put a CPU cooler in there with up to 184mm in height, which is absolutely gargantuan. Even a 120mm tower cooler is actually going to look pretty tiny in there. Also, graphics card wise, you can put an absolutely huge graphics card in there up to about 345mm. That is if you don't put a radiator in the front. There is an option if you want to, you can actually take out the front fan, the 200mm one, although that kind of goes against the purpose of the design in my opinion. But you can, if you want to, you can put two 120mm fans in the front or two 140mm fans in the front should you wish to. And the same goes for the rear mount. There's also an option for replacing the standard 120 with a 140, although that does come with some other compromises which we'll touch on a little bit later. And in the top section we've also got options in there again, two 120mm fans or two 140mm fans. Alternatively, if you wanted to put a radiator in this top section, you can put a 240mm AIO in there. A 280 potentially could fit, but that is going to depend a great deal on the motherboard you're using and also the height of your RAM. But 240 is designed essentially, or recommended for this kind of build. 280 they don't suggest, and yeah, your mileage may vary. So let's take a quick tour around the case and see what we actually get. So again, we're looking at the tempered glass side panel on here, which has got a very delicate smoke tint, which I like. Also, it has got 4 sides of protection in terms of you've got a band along the top, bottom and the sides to protect the glass should you drop it or do anything with it. It is on those really nice hinge pins, which makes it nice and easy to remove in the build process or if you have to do any other maintenance. Looking inside the case, as you can see, there's a pretty decent layout inside here. The only thing which I would have liked to have seen possibly is a little bit more height between the motherboard and the top section here. That would have given you more flexibility for larger radiators, etc. I think it's totally serviceable as it is. Got a really nice big cutout in the back there to gain access to backplates for certain coolers. And also you've got the pre-installed standoffs for the motherboard ready for Micro ATX. So no messing around there, you can go straight ahead and do it. If you do need to put the additional pillars in for the 9-pin motherboards, those are included in a little bag, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. On the bottom, there is actually a solid section here for your basement, so you can put your power supply and all the kind of wiring underneath, and it's not going to show through and look particularly ugly. Some people may or may not like the cutout for the power supply. My opinion is the fact that obviously Aerocool make their own power supplies, so for them it makes a great deal of sense. They can supply these with a power supply with their own brand on there, which is again a little bit more advertising for the company. But having said that, there's also some pass-throughs on this section. So there's one at the very front here. So if you've got an addressable RGB or an RGB strip that you want to add to the system, you can put it down in this bottom section and that will illuminate this area. There's also 2 big cutouts in here for things like your front I/O, HD audio, USB 3.0, all those kinds of good things. You'll also notice that at the very front here, there is a little bit of a gap. So if you do want to put a radiator in there, you can do, and also fans, etc. to beef up the cooling system. Towards the front section on the inside, there's mounting section for 2 SSDs or hard disk drives if you want to, 2.5-inch size. Those will go in on that front section. And just further back from that, we've got 2 rubber grommets, as you can see here, for passing cables through, which again, at this kind of price point is unusual to see. You don't often see rubber grommets on a case of this kind of price. At the top, you've also got some more pass-throughs. We'll take a look at those a little bit later on. But there's one in this section for your EPS connector, and a little bit further along here for things like fans and also addressable cables for AIOs, that sort of stuff. So overall, inside, yep, no problems at all. Loads and loads of room to work with, and a very nice layout. Moving around to the back of the case, so this is where things get a little bit more interesting actually. You do have an option here for vertical mount GPU. Now they don't include any of the cables necessary to do that, so you will need to supply your own cables. I'll try and remember to put a link in the video description for a relatively cheap PCI Express Gen 3 cable, so if you do want to do that, you can. Also, the way that it's actually spaced, because the case is actually a little bit wider than normal, again, we can put up to 184mm tower cooler on here, it does give you a little bit more room. So if you're using a dual slot GPU, it's not going to be slapped right up against the glass, so it's still going to be getting some air, which is always a good thing. The backplates, the PCI Express backplates, sadly, all of them are actually captive ones, so once you've bent them out and actually removed them, that is it, they won't go back in, which is a little bit of a downside, but not the end of the world. You can always pick up banking plates very easily and cheaply on things like eBay, Amazon, etc, etc. At the bottom, we've got room for a power supply. Fits a normal standard ATX power supply. You can put smaller ones in if you want to with an adapter plate. And power supplies, they do say actually on the website up to 190mm in length, which is pretty decent. Most power supplies tend to be around about the 160 to 170, so plenty of room for a power supply in the bottom. Also, you can see there is the section here, which is where the 120mm fan, which is pre-installed, is already in. You have got options on the side there to put in a larger 140 if you wanted to. Again, exactly the same as the Systel mesh. The only thing is with that, if you do, then you won't be able to use a vertical GPU because the fan is going to kind of obscure some of this top section. So yeah, your tolerances may vary on there. You might get away with it with some graphics cards if they're a little bit lower in height, but realistically, if you're going for a vertical GPU mount, I would stick with the 120 that is included. We've also got the I/O section here, which is all nicely cut out and really nicely rounded edges there, so no sharp jagged bits to cut your fingers on, which is always a bonus. Moving around to the back, so we've got a completely flat panel, which is good. There is still lots of room in there for cable management with a quoted 25mm gap for cable management, and the panel comes off. It's not too bad. It's looking at a 0.5mm size on the panel, so it's all pretty sturdy and well constructed. Looking in the back, so we've got a bracket here, which is for putting in 2.5-inch drives. So again, hard disk drives, SATA drives, that kind of stuff. You can put one in there. Again, quite a lot of room for drives in here, surprisingly. So you can have potentially two in this front section mounted on the front. You can have one in here. There is also underneath, there is a removable drive caddy which can fit either two 3.5-inch drives, so one actually inside the caddy and one on top of the caddy, or if you want to, you can put a 3.5 on the bottom and a 2.5 on the top. So potentially you could have one mass storage drive, 3.5-inch size, maybe 8 terabyte or something like crazy like that, and then another 4 SSDs, which is yeah, pretty remarkable. Also in the back section, we've got the little baggie here, which has got all of your screws for building your PC, so that's all nice. And actually very little wasted plastics, just a little bag in there, so that is it, absolutely brilliant. And that actually shows us now we've got the rubber grommets, as we said, and also there's a load of tie-down points. So making this a tidy build is going to be pretty straightforward. There's tie-down points in the top there, 2 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, so 3 on this downward section. You've also got this included channel here, which are in these kind of plastic clips, so all of the main I/O is actually pre-wired in there, which is, yeah, one of those jobs that you're not going to have to do, which is excellent. Again, if you want more room in the back here, you can remove this little caddy, which will give you a little bit more cable management area in the back there, but realistically, I don't think you're going to need it. And again, much like the Colink Citadel, there is loads of room for wiring, so no issues there. So yeah, pass-throughs, you can just about see those there, they're kind of angled ones. Those you may find with a 8-pin EPS, you might need to take them apart to actually fit them through. They are a little bit tight, but yeah, totally usable. And there is a cable which comes out from the fan. So one of the downsides of these fans in this particular setup is the fact that they aren't PWM controlled or even voltage DC controlled. They are a static spinning speed. Now don't panic, they are very, very low spinning, although they do seem to move quite a bit of air. The rear fan, I'm guessing, is around about 800 RPM, and the front fan somewhere in the region of about 500 to 600 RPM. So it is going to move some air, but they aren't the fastest spinning. So yeah, if you're planning on putting in some really heavy duty components in here, you might want to look at those fans, but overall, as it stands, they're absolutely fine. The single cable then goes down into this bottom channel, which then connects to the rest of it, and also that RGB button on the front, and terminates into, sadly, a single Molex connector, which, yeah, it's not the end of the world, and in some instances probably might make things a little bit better. So you can dedicate your SATA cables to all your drives, and then have a Molex, which you're not going to use anyway, for all the lighting and also the fans. So yeah, that's all well and good. Aerocool actually do add-on fans as well, so if you want to add to the system, if you get the same fan again, which I'll put a link for that in the video description as well, so you can get a couple more of those and actually just daisy chain them through these connections. So that's going to make life a little bit easier, and they're generally quite cost effective as well. Looking at the rest of the connectivity, so one of the cables we've got here is our 5-volt addressable RGB, so this is your pass-through connector. So if you do have a motherboard, like I said, with addressable RGB on it, you can plug this in and then use the motherboard to control the lighting rather than the reset switch. That's also got a little spur off it for the VDG, which is for some gigabyte motherboards, so that's absolutely fine. Front I/O section, so we've got the 4 connectors there, so you've got your reset switch, power LED, and hard drive LED, so yeah, no problems there, and all nicely blacked out cabling. You've also got a single USB 3.2 Gen 1 cable, so that is for the front I/O, 2 ports on there. There's no USB 2.0 on the front ports, which we'll take a look at later, so that's actually a bit of a blessing in my opinion. I'd rather have 2 USB 3.0s rather than 1 of each, which yeah, isn't great these days. You've also got your HD audio connector. Shame that's not really wired to the very end of blacked out cabling like the rest of it, but yeah, not particularly a deal breaker. And I think that is essentially it. Taking a look underneath, you can see you've got loads of room in here. The caddy at the bottom, like I said, is removable, just 2 screws on the bottom, and it just pulls out, so you can put your drives in, then stick it all back in, so you don't have to worry about fiddling with a screwdriver to get a drive in. So that's all well and good. Power supply section, again, 190mm power supply. There are some foamies on the bottom to absorb vibrations and that kind of stuff, so yeah, all good there. Overall, I think actually, yeah, they've done a fantastic job. It's one of those chassis which is kind of tried and tested. It's worked on quite a few brands, and they've all basically taken their own spin on it and added their own components. And yeah, I think so far they've done a really good job. Looking at the bottom of the case, so yeah, nothing much here. You've got obviously 4 feet with foam pads on the bottom rather than rubber, which is good, so it doesn't mark surfaces. 2 screws there. Undo those 2, you can pull out the drive sled, and at the back here we've got our pretty much basic filter for your power supply. The grab handle for the front panel is just here, and also that is doubling up as an air intake, obviously unfiltered. And if you want to take the front panel off, that's relatively straightforward to do, although it is on quite tough. So what you're going to want to do is to hold the case securely, put your hand underneath the grab handle and tug the front off. So that pops off relatively easily, and it's actually pretty strong. Even though it's plastic, it does feel quite rigid. and you can see there you've got that mesh which is going to let air through. Nice bit of ventilation on there. I have looked at this and I wanted to put the Noctua 200mm fans in here, but sadly, yet again, it's one of those cases where it physically will not fit. So with the front panel off, you can see now the 200mm fan on there with the addressable RGB fan. It actually does look really nice. The LEDs are actually quite visible around the outside edge, but the way it's actually done, it actually does look really nice. I really like the look it gives and the afterglow, all that kind of stuff. And the fan in the rear is exactly the same, so yeah, it looks pretty much identical. If you want to, again, you can take out that fan, remove it, and put two 120s or two 140s in there. You can also put a radiator in there should you wish to, 240, 120, 280, that kind of stuff. But I think realistically, most people are going to buy this because of the looks and will probably stick with how it is, and that pretty much is what I would recommend, really. Looking at the top section, so this is our front I/O, so we've got power button. Next to that, there's a reset button and also the LED button for cycling through the colors on the built-in RGB controller. You've got the USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, on each side of the headphone and microphone jack, so separate jacks there, which is awesome. Removable magnetic filter on the top, which is what we expect to see these days. And we've got that really nice honeycomb structure on the top, and as you can see, this is offset quite a lot. So for 120 or 140mm fans, no issues there. 240mm radiator, like we said. 280, I think, is going to be a struggle depending on your motherboard, so I would suggest 240 rather than 280, but yeah, it's entirely up to you which you put in there. So I think that's pretty much it for a tour around the case. I'm going to put a power supply in now and we'll take a look at the RGB. Okay, so we've got the power supply installed, and as you can see, the RGB, the whole look of this, I really do like. It's a very nice angular design, lots of straight edges, which are then complemented by the circles of the RGB fans. Yeah, I think this looks really, really good. The fan noise is very minimal. You can hear it. You can basically hear there's air going through the mesh and through the system, and the air coming out the back, yeah, you can feel it. There is a very slight amount of positive pressure, which is always a good thing, so that's going to try and keep dust to a minimum in the system. But yeah, I think it looks absolutely brilliant. The LED lighting, actually, you probably do need to see in person because it doesn't always do it justice on camera, but you can get a good idea. So we've got the 120mm on the back there, as you can see. We've got the 200mm on the front, and to change the lighting, just make sure, yep, that is the LED button on the top there. So what you need to do is press the button, and the first time you press it, it actually turns the lighting off, bizarrely. Then you can go through the various color cycles. So we've got this really nice looking kind of almost unicorn puke, but not quite. That goes through the various colors. Then you've got the kind of similar kind of thing, slightly different version of it. You will notice the actual fan has exterior LEDs and also interior ones, which they do different things. So yeah, it's a very nice look. It's very unique. So the fans, again, they are static speed, but they're not that fast, so they're not going to make a great deal of noise. And one thing that I personally hate is noisy fans, and actually I'll point out to people if they're noisy fans on the system. But this, I'll be honest, it was my concern that the fans, because they were static speed, it was going to be too noisy and going to be unusable. But actually the noise profile is extremely low, and in fact at the moment the thing I can hear most is the power supply in there. So the fans themselves are actually quieter than the power supply, which is a pretty decent thing. So again, lighting wise, going back, you've got the various color cycles going through the colors. There's not a huge amount of options here. You have got the static, so you've got your red, your green, your blue, into kind of like a pinky magenta. Then you've got the pale blue or cyan. Then you've got like a yellow, but the yellow itself is more of a greeny yellow, I'd say. So it's not like a Simpsons yellow, but yeah, it's a yellow nonetheless. If you want to go for a monochrome build, then we've got the white setting, and the white LEDs actually do look really nice, very crisp and very clear. And actually there's a white light, as you can see behind, where it says like, subscribe and share, which you definitely should do. And as you can see, the light is actually a little bit on the more blue spectrum than the light behind, so yep, really good. Then we go back to the unicorn puke, which again, you can see you've got the RGB LEDs on the inside ring, which are slightly offset to the ones in the outside ring, so it gives it a really nice look overall. And again, it's pretty much silent. So I'm really looking forward to doing a full build on this. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm going to put in it. It's going to be obviously Micro ATX, so do I go for a B550 and maybe a 5600G? That is definitely a possibility. Or do I go something for maybe a kind of flip system? So we go for an older B450 board and maybe an older Ryzen 3 1200, which conveniently I've just ordered from CEX. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but in the meantime, this has been the Aerocool Atomic. Thanks very much, Bob, for sending it to us. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, smash the like button and all that kind of usual stuff. But yeah, that's definitely going to wrap this one up. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.